Kevin becomes Jigsaw. Kevin's booby trap obsession in Home Alone might have been the origin story of one of horror's most twisted minds. Fans believe that after years of rigging up paint cans and fire traps, Kevin evolves into John Kramer from Saw. The traps get darker, the rules stricter, but the mechanics feel eerily familiar. He goes from holiday mischief to moral punishment using the same obsessive strategy. Even the satisfaction Kevin shows while watching his traps spring to life mirrors Jigsaw's cold gaze. The theory's loaded with clues, and honestly, it connects way too well for comfort. Santa's death was staged. In the Santa Claus, Santa falls off the roof, vanishes into thin air, and nobody seems remotely alarmed, not even the elves. Fans think that was a setup. The elves barely blink when Scott puts on the suit, which feels less like shock and more like expectation. People point out how bizarre it is that a seasoned Santa would just slip and fall so easily. Everything's a little too smooth. Santa disappears, Scott transforms, and the North Pole crew acts like they've been waiting for this. The theory? They staged it. Santa didn't fall, he got replaced. By the way, if you guys like movie content like this, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks. Anyways, Max was an unwanted gift. The Grinch never goes into Whoville, yet somehow ends up with a dog. Fans believe Max was discarded. The theory says Max was a Christmas present some Who kid didn't want, tossed out like wrapping paper, and dumped onto Mount Crumpet with the rest of Whoville's garbage. In the 2000 movie, the Grinch lives in a mountain of trashed holiday junk, and Max fits right in with the stuff nobody wanted. Since there's no origin for how they met, and the Grinch avoids Whoville, the idea that Max arrived with the trash makes his loyalty even sadder and way more believable. The Hobo is a future version of the protagonist. In the Polar Express, the Hobo only interacts with the hero boy and no one else, raising eyebrows among fans who think he's more than just a quirky roof dweller. He knows too much about the train, about belief, and about what's coming. He calls himself the King of the North Pole, vanishes into snow like a ghost, and drops cryptic wisdom that feels way too personal. Add in that Tom Hanks voices both characters, and the theory that he's a future version of Hero Boy starts making a weird kind of sense. All of the citizens of Halloween Town represent specific fears. In The Nightmare Before Christmas, fans believe each resident embodies a different phobia. Dr. Finkelstein, confined to a wheelchair and obsessed with control, reflects fear of aging and helplessness. The mayor's two faces and constant emotional flips are seen as fear of public failure and anxiety. Oogie Boogie, stuffed with bugs, taps in to fear of decay and the grotesque. The vampires, ghosts, and werewolves all echo ancient fears of the supernatural and the unknown. Even Jack Skellington, with his existential crisis, is read as symbolizing fear of purposelessness and the inevitability of death. The Who's all have hearing loss. In How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the Grinch steals everything from every house without waking a single Who except Cindy Lou. Fans think that's not magic or stealth, it's hearing damage. The theory says years of loud holiday traditions, non-stop music, and chaotic games have desensitized the Who's. Their celebrations are so loud the Grinch hears them from a mountain, suggesting dangerously high decibel levels in town. Only young Cindy Lou hears him because she's not been exposed as long. The silence during the theft is evidence. The Who's just can't hear him breaking in anymore. Myron doesn't exist. In Jingle All the Way, Myron appears only when Howard's stress is peaking, showing up as chaos ramps higher. Fans argue he's a mental projection, not a real rival. His exaggerated behavior mirrors Howard's own obsession with Turbo Man, right down to the desperation and explosive anger. Myron fixates on the same goal, escalates the same conflict, and pushes Howard further into panic. The theory frames him as a manifestation of guilt, failure, and pressure rather than a physical person. Every encounter aligns with Howard's unraveling, making Myron feel like stress given form within the film's events and character interactions throughout entirely. Hans planned to kill his crew. In Die Hard, Hans Gruber's calm reaction to his men dying feels way too calculated for a guy leading a so-called team. Fans think he never meant for most of them to make it out. He barely flinches when Carl's brother is killed, never stops to mourn anyone, and keeps the plan rolling no matter what. When the rooftop explodes, it wipes out both hostages and his own crew, but he's focused on the bonds, not bodies. Everything he does points to one goal: getting the money and escaping solo, with the rest of the team just part of the setup. The presents in the beginning of Elf aren't going to any kids. In Elf, after Santa finishes delivering gifts and Buddy crawls out of the sack, fans notice something odd: there are still extra presents left inside. This visual detail has sparked a theory that those remaining gifts were packed for kids who died after Santa's sleigh was loaded. Since the sack's magic should match the list exactly, the leftover presents don't make sense unless something changed. Supporters say those toys were never delivered because the children they were meant for never made it to Christmas morning, giving the moment a chilling undertone. Hermey is Santa's son. In Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Hermey stands out immediately. He wants to be a dentist, not a toy maker, and looks nothing like the other elves. Fans think that's because he's not really one of them. His rounded ears and blonde hair clash with the sharp-eared uniform crew, leading to the theory that Hermey is actually Santa's secret son. The idea has been kicked around fan forums for years, with people pointing to his outsider status and rebellious attitude as signs of hidden lineage. He doesn't fit in because he's not meant to. He's Santa's kid, trying to carve his own path. The elves didn't react to the death of the former Santa because they weren't allowed to by North Pole law. In the Santa Claus, Santa falls off a roof, vanishes, and nobody bats an eye. The elves don't grieve, panic, or even mention him again. Fans think that silence is required. The theory says North Pole law forces elves to suppress emotion and immediately accept the next Santa to keep operations running smoothly. The contract left behind is treated like a legal document, not a memorial, and the elves follow it without hesitation. Their reaction, or lack of one, looks like protocol, not apathy. Elf is an allegory for religion and loss of faith. In Elf Buddy's belief in Santa never wavers, even when the entire world around him rejects it. Fans and commentators see this as more than holiday cheer, it mirrors spiritual conviction. The sleigh only works when people believe, making faith itself a power source. When belief drops, Santa crashes. Buddy's journey, from being an outsider mocked for his devotion to reigniting belief in others, follows the arc of a spiritual revival. He spreads joy, restores wonder, and reminds everyone what they've forgotten, echoing classic themes of redemption, transformation, and the strength of childlike faith. Cousin Eddie is a disenfranchised Vietnam War veteran. In National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Eddie mentions going to the VA for a metal plate in his head, and that detail isn't just played for laughs. Fans think it points to a military past, likely Vietnam. His age fits the timeline, and the VA reference connects directly to veterans dealing with service-related injuries. The plate's never explained, but supporters argue it's likely from combat. Eddie's erratic behavior, unemployment, and financial instability also reflect real struggles many veterans faced after returning home. The theory paints him as a sideline soldier trying to survive, not just comic relief. Home Alone takes place in Kevin's mind. Fans think the whole movie might be playing out inside Kevin's head. The theory is backed by in-film details, like the furnace talking to him in the basement, something even he admits isn't real. Kevin's memory of family arguments is distorted, his self-talk feels like dream logic, and everything's told through his perspective. The traps, the timing, even tricking adults all seem a little too perfect, especially for an 8-year-old. Scenes shift between cartoonish and serious depending on Kevin's mood, and scary characters like Old Man Marley soften only when Kevin's emotions change. It's all filtered through his imagination. Gremlins is a conservative diatribe against imported products. The theory points straight to Gizmo, a mysterious creature from a Chinatown shop brought into a quiet American town and unleashing chaos. Supporters say this mirrors 1980s fears about foreign goods disrupting domestic life. Mr. Futterman practically yells it, ranting about foreign TV and blaming imported tech for everything going wrong. His character frames foreign products as threats, echoing real-life trade anxieties of the time. Fans argue the film's destruction stems from introducing something foreign into the American system, making it a stealthy warning about global imports cloaked in creature feature chaos. Santa Claus allowed the Grinch to steal Christmas. In the 1966 animated special, Santa never appears, even though the Grinch impersonates him and robs an entire town on Christmas Eve. Fans argue that Santa's absence is intentional. The theory says Santa, knowing the Grinch's heart, let the theft happen because it was the only way the Grinch would change. Instead of stopping him, Santa allows the plan to unfold so the Grinch can see that Christmas means more than gifts. The Who's still celebrate, the Grinch breaks down, and everything turns around. Exactly the kind of outcome a wise old Santa might have seen coming. Burgermeister, Meisterburger, and Heatmiser are the same person. Fans think the grumpy, toy-hating mayor from Santa Claus is coming to town transformed. Both characters come from Rankin/Bass specials, and they look oddly alike. Tall, sharp features, wild eyebrows, and dramatic expressions. Burgermeister bans toys, while Heatmiser tries to ruin Christmas with scorching heat. Their motives clash with Santa, and their over-the-top personalities line up a little too well. Since Heatmiser's origin is never explained, the theory says he's Meisterburger reincarnated or magically repurposed. Same voice style, same villain energy, just a new outfit and a lot more fire. Klaus is North from Rise of the Guardians. Fans think the kind toy maker from Klaus became the immortal guardian of wonder known as North. In Rise of the Guardians, North is described as a real man who was chosen to become a magical spirit, which fits perfectly with Klaus's story. Klaus starts as a reclusive human, brings joy through gifts, and mysteriously disappears while still delivering presents each year. The Guardians lore says holiday figures begin as real people, and Klaus's life matches that path. Both characters give toys, inspire belief, and become legends. One just lives long enough to become myth. A Year Without Santa Claus is Santa recounting a nightmare he had. In the 1974 special, Santa starts off sick and discouraged, then things spiral into chaos, cities rejecting Christmas, Heatmiser and Snowmiser fighting, and elves pleading for holiday spirit. Fans think the whole thing's too surreal to be real. The theory says it's a dream, with Santa imagining the world falling apart if he skipped 1 year. The musical battles, cartoon logic, and exaggerated stakes feel like a subconscious panic spiral. Some even recall Santa saying he dreamed unhappy things, which fits the idea that this was just a glimpse into his worst fear. Nightmare Before Christmas is the culminating movie in a trilogy of Burton films. Fans link Frankenweenie, Corpse Bride, and The Nightmare Before Christmas as one continuous story, forming an unofficial Burton trilogy. Each film follows a pale, wide-eyed protagonist with similar personalities and a ghostly dog, Sparky, Scraps, then Zero. The theory says Victor from Frankenweenie grows into Victor Van Dort, then after death transforms into Jack Skellington. All three dogs look alike, act alike, and stay loyal, which supporters use to tie the timeline together. The gothic style, repeating themes, and matching designs make Nightmare the final chapter in this eerie evolution. Ebenezer Scrooge suffers from PTSD from living through the Napoleonic Wars. If Scrooge is around 60 in Dickens's 1843 novella, he would have been a young man during the early 1800s, right when Britain was deep in conflict with Napoleonic France. That period brought widespread trade disruption, economic collapse, and deep uncertainty, especially for merchants like Scrooge. Fans say his obsessive hoarding, emotional detachment, and fear of poverty reflect trauma symptoms, not just greed. His frugality and coldness could mirror psychological fallout from surviving years of financial instability. The theory ties Scrooge's behavior to long-term emotional damage caused by living through wartime economic chaos. All of George Bailey's suffering is caused by Mary's wish. In It's a Wonderful Life, Mary makes a silent wish at the Granville house while George dreams out loud. Fans say her wish locks his future, it's permanent. After that moment, George never leaves Bedford Falls. His father dies, the business traps him, travel plans collapse, and sacrifice replaces adventure. Each setback keeps him tied to Mary and the town. The theory connects the depression, his stalled ambitions, and his Christmas Eve breakdown to that single wish. George's entire life bends away from freedom the second Mary's hope takes root. Home Alone is a sequel to Black Christmas. Fans think the cheerful chaos of Home Alone hides a darker past. Specifically, that it's set years after the events of the 1974 slasher Black Christmas. The theory ties Old Man Marley, rumored to be the South Bend shovel slayer, to the unnamed killer from Black Christmas, whose identity was never revealed. That film ends ambiguously, leaving room for the murderer to resurface. Home Alone's creepy neighborhood legend fits the timeline perfectly. The reused themes, Christmas, murder, urban myth, line up too well. The theory says the killer didn't disappear, he just moved to the suburbs. Mankind almost faced the apocalypse in Elf. In the film, Santa's sleigh crashes because Christmas spirit hits dangerously low levels, and fans argue that drop nearly triggered a total collapse of belief-based magic. The Claus-o-meter flatlines, and the sleigh becomes dead weight over Central Park. Santa confirms the sleigh can't fly without spirit, which is treated as a global power source in the movie's world. The theory says this was a crisis. The world came close to losing all magical infrastructure tied to Christmas. Only when people started singing did belief spike again, narrowly pulling everything back from the brink. The Who's dark history. Some viewers interpret their history as disturbingly violent. One dark fan theory argues that the Who's may have wiped out the Grinch's species entirely. He's the only one left, and no other creatures like him appear in Whoville. Fans use this absence to suggest a genocidal past masked by holiday cheer. The Who's are presented as joyful and united, but their insular, one-species society and complete cultural uniformity hint at something darker. The theory says their obsession with tradition might hide a history of eliminating outsiders who didn't conform. Kevin's uncle put a hit on him. Fans argue Uncle Frank secretly hired the Wet Bandits to target Kevin while the family was gone. Frank is cruel and isn't kind to Kevin, insults him, and shows resentment throughout the trip. Supporters say that hostility provides motive. He volunteers to wake Kevin, then fails, which lines up with the house being empty. The burglars know the timing and choose that house. The theory claims Frank fed them details and arranged the break-in to solve his problem. What looks like random crime becomes a calculated setup, with Frank positioned as the hidden antagonist driving everything forward. Iris and Graham are planning to murder Amanda. In the holiday, Amanda swaps homes with Iris and ends up alone in a remote English cottage, prime setup for a trap. Fans think it's not romantic fate, but a con. The theory says Iris and her brother Graham lure Amanda to Surrey to isolate her, assess her wealth, and plan her elimination. Graham's sudden appearance at the cottage feels staged, and his quick seduction looks strategic. Iris's intense excitement over Amanda's Los Angeles mansion is read as more than envy, it's motive. The theory even suggests Graham's first wife didn't die naturally. It's all about inheritance. The Conductor is Marty McFly's son. Fans link the Polar Express to Back to the Future through one major connection. Robert Zemeckis directed both. The theory says the Conductor is Marty's grown son, using Doc Brown's time-traveling train from the third movie, now repurposed for magical Christmas missions. Supporters point to the engine's design, claiming it includes a component that looks like a flux capacitor. The timeline fits, and the steam train legacy connects both worlds. The idea is that Doc gifted the train to Marty's family, and it evolved into the Polar Express, with Marty's son becoming its guide across space, time, and belief. The audience believes. In the Polar Express, the silver bell from Santa only rings for those who truly believe in Christmas. The hero boy can't hear it until he embraces belief, and by the end, it rings clearly for him, while others, like his parents, hear nothing. The bell's sound becomes a signal of belief itself. Fans argue that when we, the audience, hear it ringing in the final scenes, it's meant to reflect our own belief in the story's magic. The ringing is a test, and we're part of it. If you enjoyed this, I post movie content a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching, and happy holidays.